You're watching Time Warner Cable's Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Anthony Portantino, former member of the California State Assembly. He left as a result of term limits, and I want to speak with you about an issue that was near and dear to you, probably still is, and that is gun control. As you may remember, there was a tragedy with a Kansas City Chiefs football player who killed his wife and then killed himself. And Bob Costas, the legendary sports broadcaster, came out in favor of gun control. He got hammered for it. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the problem with that issue is it's so emotional, and we lose sort of the practical common sense aspect of it. You know, there's a time and a place for owning a gun. There's nobody that's going to go against the First Amendment.
Second
Amendment. But you have to be common sense. In California, we banned open carry. You don't need a political...
That was your bill.
That was my bill. You don't need a weapon on Main Street, California to buy a cheeseburger. You need a $5 bill.
Right.
You know, it was a common sense thing that law enforcement came. Training, safety, all of those things. I mean, you need a license to drive a car. You need training to fly a plane. I mean, when you have these tragedies, it highlights that there's a middle ground that needs to be...
I have to ask you about one specific U.S. congressional race right here in California. Right. Joe Baca, a legendary name in California, was running as an incumbent against a fellow Democrat, Gloria Negrete-McLeod, a state senator who hadn't raised a lot of money. It was seen as Baca's, I mean, it wasn't even on the radar. Michael Bloomberg, a supporter of gun control, mayor of New York, dumped in maybe $9 million. It's hard to know the figures yet. I've heard 2, I've heard 9, on behalf of Gloria Negrete-McLeod, who took out Joe Baca as a result of his positions on guns.
I think the public wants reasonable gun control.
Do they, though? I mean, that's my question. I mean, it's the Inland Empire, so I mean, that's a more conservative area.
Obviously, they did. Obviously, the Inland Empire saw that Gloria was going to be a better representative for their needs, and there was enough money to make that argument. And Mr. Baca had traditionally been very close to the NRA, and that was his undoing in that race.
So is this a model for the Brady gun control advocates, or is this...
I think it's a wake-up call for all politicians. Don't be so dogmatic that you're doing policy based on a knee-jerk reaction. Let's find out what the core issue is. The core issue is respect the Second Amendment, but have reasonable controls that make mainstream safe.
Because if you ask me, I cannot think of a race where gun control played such a pivotal role and the gun control candidate won. Usually it's the flip.
It's the opposite.
And so where does... I mean, I just have to think that the gun control advocates want to bottle this and figure this out, because over the last decade, the NRA has been incredibly successful.
I think the key is to articulate what it is you want to do. Again, I go back to open carry. Open carry was closing a loophole to make Main Street safe. I've had rank and file Republicans come up to me and say, you know what, I agree with you on open carry.
But you got massacred.
I got hammered by the extremists, but you're always going to get hammered by the extremists. There's some wanted posters with my picture on it.
I like that. I want one of those.
And some Facebook posts that make my wife nervous. But you got to do what's right at the end of the day.
Do you think that this selection of Gloria Negrete-McLeod is a harbinger for the future, or is it an
I think it's a wake-up call to all sides of this issue. We need to figure it out in the right way and stop making it political, because if it makes it political, you're going to see battles over this issue.
So will you stay involved in the gun control debate?
I'm going to stay involved with the Brady campaign to end gun violence. I'm going to stay involved with what I would call good common sense public policy.
His name is Anthony Portantino. He left the California State Assembly after 6 years as a result of term limits. My name is Brad Pomerance. I want to thank you so much for watching Time Warner Cable's Local Edition.